But at that point, our broker agreement is basically useless because it doesn't mean anything, right? Because it's closed. And so that's kind of where you are. I mean, it's the same problem with clear cooperation. Unless somebody turns you in, I'm never going to know that you did it, and there's no real way for me to enforce it as a rule. So while there is the requirement, and you are required to do it, that's kind of where we are. Is that, you know, I don't have a method for enforcing it. If anybody comes up with a brilliant idea, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah.
But you do have to have it. So what we're planning is basically to treat it the same way we do for listing agreements. I'm gonna assume you have it, and if I need it, I'll ask you for it. But other than that, I'm gonna assume you're gonna do the thing you have to do. Because like I said, there's no method by which I could even, I don't even have a place where you could put it, if you have it. So it is what it is for right now. Now, that could change in the future. Like I said, everything is fluid right now, and will continue to be fluid for a long time, probably at least until the beginning of next year. But, and they may come out with requirements about what we have to do for that. But right now, I'm trying to lay low, do what we have to do, and then when they tell me we think things come up, we'll play whack-a-mole until it gets something usable. But I'm trying to maintain and minimize the disruption to everybody.
But Doug, so we are using for listing agreements starting today, or we're using TN, 20 TN.
I think it's
7 TN for buyer broker.
what I emailed about.
Yeah, I think we got like 2 different emails. I think they're like 7 documents or something total. Is that right? One had
I
like
think
4.
the last one I just sent 3.
So those are the 3 we have to utilize.
Last Tuesday.
$17.
For Peavy and EBBA. 20 TN for the listing. I haven't printed it.
And I think, I don't know if anybody saw it, you might make something.
No, go ahead. Do you want to go up here?
Yeah, come on.
Go to the front of the room.
Not for long.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to get bumped up. I watched the webinar yesterday. And my main concern in this whole process has been about our current listings. What do we need to do to make them compliant? And they came out with new documents in March. Just a new listing agreements. And then they came out with another one just recently. But if you have a listing with a date of March or after, there will be a modification that you will send out to your sellers, but it will not need to be signed.
Okay.
It'll just, I will.
Recording in
Hang on, for you to upload that document. So we have it. Contains the verbiage that is required by the settlement, that all broker agreements for compensation are not set by law, but are fully negotiable. Okay, that's for after, March 24th.
So
listings after March.
So after March 24th,
Yes,
we have
the documents that they came out then, that just need that one phrase, and they will be compliant, and it will not have to be signed. It will be a separate document. Pre-March 24, we're waiting to see what happened. If you have listings that predate those March documents, then there will be a separate modification that will probably need to be signed, but don't worry about that right now.
They're still working on that form. Correct.
Yes, and I don't know what it's gonna look like. I created one, because honestly, I was getting upset because they're dragging their feet. It seemed, I was on the last webinar and I asked the question twice and was ignored. they jumped over my question and answered something else. This, just, and
But then
just
they
before
don't
this,
have an answer yet, is what I mean. They don't get the
That's how
answer.
that's
I don't know, you know, it seems like it would be a simple fix, you know, but maybe not.
Doug, I have a quick question, please.
Sure.
So, you know, people are gonna listen, people are gonna hear it, we're gonna forget it. And there's gonna be 1,000
I'm gonna
questions.
email everything out.
So what would you like to do if someone calls and says, hey, I just wanna verify this is good? What is the best avenue for us to get an answer from you or from somebody else?
Call my cell or email.
Call or email?
Yes, either one. Don't text me.
I text that. He's always very helpful.
He emails back very
I know.
quickly.
Yeah,
Sometimes 3, 4.
I live by email all day, so
Okay,
I will email back to everyone.
okay, thank you.
All right.
All right, for those just joining you, Doug gave some very good information. I am Chris Peavy. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at the Emerald Coast Association of Realtors. Let's see, we are here today to talk about the changes obviously caused by the NAR settlement in the MLS. The good news is that at least from the MLS's point of view, you won't really have to do anything to your listings. The compensation fields and any fields dealing with compensation and money in lots of ways, and we'll talk about them all specifically, will just go away. They'll still be in the system. You will not have access to them. I will not have access to them. They'll just be there. Now, only because I don't know the answer yet, let me tell you this. The history for information related to compensation will still exist right now, but we don't know if that's kosher or not. So Flex, the corporation, is literally talking to NAR and their legal team about, is this a problem? But the only thing that would mean is if you had a compensation in a listing and it was 3% and you changed it to 2.5% or 4%, it would know the change. That's it. If you just put in a compensation and have never modified it again, you know, throughout the life of the listing, it will never show in history, so it's not there. So we're only talking specifically about if you've made a change and whether that's a problem, and Flex is working on that on their end. So on August 12th, what's gonna happen is the fields just won't be there anymore. All right? It's not as scary as it sounds, right? So it's the standard compensation fields, obviously. So where we have transaction broker, non-rep, single agent, and then the percentage or dollar amounts, those will just disappear. They just won't be in the system anymore. All right? Now, we are also getting rid of some other fields. We may or may not need to get rid of, but we're compliant, so we're going to get rid of them, and we'll deal with that on the back end. So the other fields we'll be getting rid of are the compensation fields, compensation notes, compensation disclosure, right? So previously, where you put in a short sale and the compensation disclosure would say, well, here's how we're going to split percentages. That's going away, as well as dual variable rate. The yes, no field for that. Now, the important portion of that one is if you have a dual variable rate, ethics still requires you to disclose it, but I've basically been told that I can't be the holder for that. So you have to figure out what that's going to look like. In November, NAR will be meeting about ethics changes, and I expect there will be a few changes related to the settlement, but obviously that will be in November, and we have to be in compliance before in August 17th, right? So, let's see, what other fields? Bonus is out. Bonus, yes, no is out. It has been asked several times, will there be a concessions field? And so some associations are removing compensation and adding a field that just says concessions, yes, no. And the answer is maybe in the future, but not right now. It's too easy for people to conflate me removing compensation and adding concessions to mean, oh, well, that should not be what we put. So we're just not gonna do that right off the bat. We're gonna see where things shake out and see what happens. Like I said, I hope to be able to put back some of the fields that we'll be taking out, but we are literally just shotgun approaching everything that results or could result in a possible fine at this point. That does not mean that people will not do crazy things. I have already heard tell of people talking about, you know, Well, set all the clocks and all the photos to 3 o'clock, and that's how we'll know we're offering 3%. I know, right? And I know all of the names of all the people that I've told that to, so if one of you does it. But yeah, I mean, they're getting ridiculous, far out in left field at this point. And we as an association don't want to make anything more difficult for you than we have. And so as a result, and you're one of the first that I told this about, it's not codified yet, but here's what we're looking at as basically the way that we're going to enforce this, okay? So obviously we are taking out the fields. Don't put compensation or commissions in other fields, okay? I feel like I shouldn't have to say that, but I'm saying it out loud now. If that does happen, if someone puts compensation or commission in the notes or agent-to-agent remarks or what have you, we have a couple of things that we're going to do. So there is a compliance module that we have already in place. If you've ever tried to put a phone number into the public remarks field, you'll have come up against the system. Basically, it just disallows it. You try and put a certain thing in there and it's more fun. And so we're going to do the same thing for the words compensation and commission in all the text fields that it allows. So I'm going to try and stop people from doing that. That said, I know that it's going to happen. And so what we as an association are going to do is you're going to get one warning, one singular warning. And when I say warning, what's going to happen is I'm going to take your entire field out. So if you put, we love other brokers, we're going to pay 3% commission in the remarks or agent-to-agent notes, I'm going to cut the whole field. The field will now be empty. And then I'm going to send you an email, or we're going to send you an email saying, hey, here's what you did. It's a problem. Fix it. And you have 2 business days to fix it. If you do it again, there will be a fine. All right?
Can I say, we love working with buyer's agents, please call me and I'll tell you how much we love working with agents.
So that's not against the rules yet, but if everybody starts doing that, it probably would become against the rules. So what we're trying to avoid is basically people coming up with a phrase or terminology that indicates that we are offering compensation, because I cannot allow that to happen. And so that's where the fine comes in, and the rule as written right now, and again, it hasn't been approved, basically says any compensation or commission information for inferred. So even that might be problematic. And so I would probably ask you not to do that. But I get where you're coming from. And so where we are is that you would, if you did that and somebody reported it, because again, I don't have enough staff to look at every listing that comes up in the system, but if somebody reported it, I would send you a note that's got your entire field, whatever you had in remarks in it, or in agent notes in it, and your listing would be blank. Now that's different from the way that CFAR and FAR are doing it, where they're actually removing the listing until you fix it. Oh, wow. Yeah. So in trying to make this as easy for you and as painless for the consumer as possible, I'm trying to leave your listing active while pulling the problematic area, if that makes sense. And so if you see a listing that doesn't have public remarks or doesn't have agent notes, you'll pretty much figure out what happened, right? Yeah. You can even check the history and it'll say what I took out. But we'll work on that later. I can fix that too. But that's the plan for now. So like I said, the first time you're gonna get an email from me, it'll have your whatever you said in there, why it's a problem, and don't do it again. And 2 days to fix it, right? The second time you do it, and if, for example, you just copy what I sent to you and put it back, that's considered a second violation. It's a $500 fine. And then I'm gonna pull it down again. And then the third time you do it, you actually have to go before a panel made up of the MLS committee. And they can do worse things to you. And right now, the plan basically follows professional standards, which says that they can up to a $15,000 fine, suspension or termination.
Or we can text, email, talk about it, if an agent calls.
Yeah, absolutely. You can include it on your marketing.
Social
Yes.
or personal
I can
pages.
mail it out.
Yes, yes, absolutely. The only thing you can't do is put it in the MLS.
Or any affiliated things like showing time and stuff, correct?
Correct.
Anything affiliated with them?
Yes, no showing time, no Google groups, right? But any marketing that you do, you can put it on your flyers, you can put it, I've heard of offices planning to put it on a keychain. 3% on the
I
keychain.
saw it at the door.
And put it in the lockbox. Yeah, so none of that is a problem. None of that is an issue at all. But like I said, where we are, we're in so much of an uncharted water that so let me give you an example. You can absolutely put your listing on your website with your commission on it. Not a problem, right? You can even put a link in our system to your website, but you cannot put a link in our system to the listing where it displays the commission information.
Okay.
And so that's the
On
problem.
that, so on that advertising part, if we put it like on our Facebook, because of the connection with the MLS, if we put like buyer's agent commissions on there, but we have a link to the listing from our Facebook, can we do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
As long as it's coming from Facebook to the MLS, that's fine. And where it's you to me, that's fine. But if you have me to you, where you have the commission listed, that's a problem. Yes.
So if in the description, you like put solar concessions, like 3% towards buyer's closing costs, will the system kick that out too, since it's playing a percentage?
It's a very good question.
I know you can't read through every single one and see what we're
Correct.
talking about.
So right now, the only thing that I'm putting in the compliance module are the words compensation and commission. That said,
Sorry.
I have 3 or 4 other words that we are monitoring.
Concessions being one of them.
But, well, no, concessions is okay, right? You can offer concessions, you've always been able to offer concessions. The thing you can't do is you can't say, tell them what the concession is for. So you can't say, we're offering a 3% concession so you can pay your broker or your agent. That is against the rules, right? But if they wanted to do, concessions for flooring, or concessions for closing costs, or concessions are fine. As long as we're not talking about commission, we're not talking about compensation, we're not talking about them having to use it for something, because that's against the rules. But like I said, yeah, the system is not smart enough to do more than just look for a word, so we're going to make those 2 words against the rules. I would probably end up having to add more rules as we come up with new and creative ways to violate things. We will have to come up with new and creative ways to try and stop them.
But y'all are like in charge of our sign, stuff like that too, with.
Yeah.
They put.
I'm not in charge of your signs. No,
Okay.
it's good. I just, there's a lot of things I'm responsible for. Please don't put more on me than I have to be. So, the regulatory agency for signs is actually PREC, so Florida Real Estate Council. Now, you can absolutely put your percentage on your sign. I have no problem with that. I would verify that with, Florida Legal, but the last time I was told, that was fine. Any marketing that you put out, perfectly acceptable to put whatever your compensation is. Now, the only thing that they did recommend, and this was in the thing the other day, they don't recommend a blanket statement where you say, we always offer a buyer's agent compensation. You don't say that. Per listing, individual per listing, and basically the way it's done.
Those compensation agreements were created for this purpose, so that when you have, your buyer wants to put a contract on a property, you send that compensation agreement, contact the agent, find out what they're paying, send the compensation agreement and sign, and that's constructive notice that you have a deal, and you're being paid. Basically, the compensation agreements are designed to supplant the MLS, I assume, because up until now, the MLS has been constructive notice about what you're gonna be paid. That's what I look for. So, now it's going to be, that compensation.
Correct. And so the theory is that that's more of a conversation than mine, where if you had posted it, it was a contract.
And what form is that?
MLS either.
Correct.
What form was it, that one?
It was one of the ones he sent out, the Tuesday email, what is the compensation?
Compensation, well, there's seller and buyer's broker, and there's, seller's broker and buyer's broker. That's the one I recommend.
Which
Sales
one?
broker.
Seller's broker, buyer's broker.
Seller's broker, buyer's broker.
Okay.
And this is unique to your office, which is why I'm letting Doug answer that question and not me. Because I can tell you where to go to get these kinds of things, but individual brokerages are going to do things differently. Right? So it is a conversation now. If you have a buyer and you find a listing, you're gonna need to talk to them about it. But you can, at the point where you call and ask them, hey, can we come see it on this date and time? Ask about compensation. That's fine.
It's fine to ask that.
I don't know.
Do you think that the listing prices of homes, for example, could be like trying to beat the settlement, or you think it could be due to inflation? Like you buy the house for $399, $993, $992, I'm just $925. I mean, my friends wanted me to ask.
Yeah, I heard. So I would caution anybody against trying to game the settlement. So one of the things we've been told is basically the fine for getting caught getting the settlement is $10 million.
10 million?
10 million.
Jesus, I know the 399 home.
Right. So it's a maybe we don't try things right off the bat kind of situation. But yes, I'm fully aware that people are going to do things. Like I said, the photos was the one that I heard.
That was hilarious.
That I
That was
also
great.
thought was funny, yeah. Flex actually came to us with that one. So Flex has another module, it's an AI, photo compliance module. And they wanted to sell us that at $1,600 a month, because they thought that was gonna happen. And I was like, if some chucklehead puts 2% in the photo and just that's the only thing in the photo, somebody's gonna turn it in. But because photos are searchable anyway, it's not that big a deal to me. The fields I'm worried about are where people put it in
Yeah.
public remarks or agent to agent notes that are searchable fields. People will go looking for it, and once that becomes an issue, the MLS gets, in trouble. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend the photos just because that's ridiculous. Yes.
At what point do you, come after the brokerage?
So the first notice goes to the agent and the broker. So that's different than the way that we normally do it. So what we did is and it again hasn't been approved, but we have three current classifications of violation in the MLS board. Class 1, Class 2, and Class 3. They created a Class 4 violation specifically so that we could do exactly what they wanted to do. At the first notice, it's the agent and the broker. The second notice, or the second violation, where the fine, the broker is actually fined. Because that's the way we always fine, right? That way the broker has to pay attention to it. And then the third violation, where you have to come before a panel, you have to come with your broker, and you have to do it within 45 days. 45. And like I said, that's not really that new. There's been a rule for a while about if you have 3 violations of the same thing within 12 months, you have to come before a panel of the broker or of the MLS committee. We've just not had anybody do that yet. But that's where we put teeth in. So, and that was all basically my suggestion, because NAR's guidelines basically say that the MLS cannot accept compensation, commission, blah, 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 and cannot link to places that do. And if anyone is found in violation, their access to the data and IDX feeds are terminated. That's all it says, terminated, not for how long, not for, it doesn't say anything about warnings or how we're gonna deal with it, it says that's what we have to do. But like I said, you can absolutely put your percentages, compensation, whatever you want, however you wanna do it on your own webpage. You just can't put other people's on there, right? So all of Keller Williams can be on there, and that's fine. But at the point where you start adding, Coldwell Banker, now we have a problem. And I, as an MLS, would basically have to shut you down.
We can send out an email referencing.
Yeah. You can absolutely send out an email. You can even send an email of the listing with it in the body of the email. That's fine.
Link to the MLS.
Yes, because like I said, where you get into trouble is if my listing or my MLS goes to a place that shows the compensation as the property.
Right.
But if any marketing that you have is allowed to have the percentages in it. And so anything that you create, be it a QR code or a website or whatever, mailer kind of thing, if it's got a percentage on it and leads back to the listing, that's absolutely fine. But mine can't be connected to it. Make sense? Yeah. So that's, so don't put links in there in the system to that. But again, where we are is you can put, and I asked about this twice, you can put a link to your website, you just can't put a link to your website with that specific listing. Make sense? I wouldn't.
So you would basically, essentially, if it were, you created a landing page and put that link, you could not do that because the landing page would be specific to
Correct.
said property.
Correct.
Okay.
Assuming that that landing page has a percentage or compensation on it.
That should not happen.
That's
You
the
cannot
problem.
boom, one link, okay.
Correct. But like I said, if you just want to link to Keller Williams page,
Yeah.
that's fine. Not to the specific listing or a specific listing. Let's go ahead and say that. Not to a specific listing. Let's see, obviously by the 12th, and we talked about this a little bit, right as the camera was coming on, so anybody who joined us a little late may not have heard it, but, the 12th is also the compliance for having a buyer broker agreement in place before you show a property. Right? That's the caveat, is before you show a property. Are there any concerns or questions or confusion about that one? And that's great. And that's absolutely what I want to hear.
That means video tours, that means in-person tour, that means
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
Minus open houses, correct?
Yeah, so
That's
the
part
open
of the
house,
listing.
the difference in an open house is that you were just at an open house and somebody comes in, you are not working for them, you are working for the seller. But at the point where they go, hey, there's two other houses down the street, can you show them to us tomorrow? You have to have. The same thing applies to virtual tours. If you have a virtual tour and you put it in the listing, you are at that point working on behalf of the seller, right? Make sense? Yeah. So if you have a virtual tour, but at the point where you go to do a virtual tour for someone, FaceTime or whatever,
Right.
that's the same thing.
Okay.
So say I'm doing an open house for another agent, right? So I'm trying to get clients and I'm trying to get a buyer, right? They come in, they look at the house and they say, okay, we represented.
Yep.
So then at that point, if I want to show them
Another
another
house.
house,
Yes.
not that house right there.
Because again, if you were in an open house, you were working on behalf of the person that is selling that house.
Yeah.
Not the person who came in to build, right? Obviously, we want to build a rapport, we want to have that form, and we want to get that going forward. But even if it's not your listing, you are considered to be working on behalf of the seller. And again, that was the last time I heard it, so keep an eye out for that kind of thing, because I know that question is going to come strong. Yeah.
Chris, actually, I wasn't gonna bring this up with you, because you're not in charge of our forms, but since Doug's here.
Absolutely.
So we have to have the buyer agreement signed. And we put in I'm gonna use outlandish figures, so I'm not looking like I'm setting anything.
Yeah.
So we put in there 20%, for our fee for the buyer. The seller is offering 15%. Well, by the time we close, we have to have a modification that reflects that 15%, or else at closing, the buyer is legally responsible for that 20%, or the 5% different, whatever. I can't find a form. I can find forms for modification of seller stuff, but I can't find a modification form for the buyer broker agreement, for that percentage.
I think I sent it out.
Did you? When? This morning? I haven't seen it.
It's MEED. That's
So did we need to, because I looked up form simplicity for modification.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Because the buyer broker agreement is not new. It's actually been in the system for
Yeah,
years.
party.
Yeah, and it's for the best, but yeah, there should be a buyer modification.
He said it was sent out August first by email. So,
I only looked at one simplicity and couldn't find it to upload it.
thank you.
Yeah,
So if you sit in open house, is it smart to maybe have the seller's broker and buyer broker sign by the selling agent to you, so that if you sell it during that open house, your client can see?
it's up to you. I mean, and that's a brokerage thing, assuming you're sitting in a brokerage open house.
Yeah.
Or brokerage. One of the things that I was asked, or the first one of these classes I did was, what if I'm sitting in another brokerage's open house? And I was like, why would you do that? But, at that point, yes, I would absolutely recommend you have whatever you needed, in writing between your broker and, their broker kind of thing. But if it's an internal brokerage open house, like I said, at the point where you go to show another house, you have to have a form, but for showing that house is okay, because again, you're working on behalf of the seller, not the potential buyer.
Can I ask you about it? When we're sending off the listing agreements to get signed, et cetera, and buyer broker off, so we can get that to you, if I pass you on it? Okay, well, so we're not doing it.
It's qualified now. The EBPR is still Jeff, we checked yesterday. We'll talk.
I checked this morning, Pearly needs it too.
What's that?
Pearly, our management, our administrative services, was the updated to the new broker week as well.
Did you see it changed for him?
Yep.
So
It still shows.
all of the things regarding broker signatures, you want to go to your email versus, I just know you're busy right now with the things you do. And so,
Well, when that all changes over in the EBPR, I'll be signing for him.
Okay.
Send it to me.
okay, well, we've got mentees, some of us have mentees and stuff, so we're like waiting to go to. So your email, is that all signature?
Brian09@gmail.
Yeah, thank you.
What else? Anything else? Any other questions you guys have? You're good, please.
So is it true, I think this is what I understood on a Zoom last week, is that if you have an agreement with the buyer that you get paid 2%, but the seller's offering 3%, you have to have them sign a thing saying that you can get paid the 3%?
Yes. So basically, the form that you were signing with your buyer broker agreement, they've been very careful about the wording, says that form indicates the maximum amount you're going to be compensated from any location. So it doesn't mean you can't, but it means you gotta figure out what you need to do in order to go higher than that.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But yeah, otherwise, whatever is in your buyer broker agreement is what should be compensated.
What if it's on the contract?
Then that, if you've got a conflict between the buyer broker agreement, which is the contract itself, and the closing or contract statement, you gotta figure out how to reconcile those two as quickly as possible. You've gotta figure out what you need. That's the problem. And like I said, it may or may not be a problem. You may only end up getting 2% because that's what your agreement says. But if you have a conflict, you gotta get that worked out as quickly as possible.
Can I say something?
Yes, please.
And they may be the new listing agreements that they were trying to keep that from happening.
Yeah.
So that people weren't double dipping and trying to, scam their clients. They want the client, consumer protected. So, yes, you can modify it, but, just be upright in what you do. Because it'll come back.
Can I ask, as a listing agent, what's my responsibility for that? I mean, say my listing, agreement says 2.5%. What's my responsibility as a listing agent for that? And I don't have any, do I? Because whatever's on their end is submitted to
Yeah, that's
whoever.
something completely different.
I don't know what other brokerages do for compliance, but, if they submit a 3% and
Your client is only obligated to pay what that contract says.
That's it. Yeah.
well, I'm just saying, talking about buyer broker agreements, it's not my responsibility to get their buyer broker agreement for compensation. Or the title
Like I said, where you are is it's supposed to be a conversation, not a fire brigade, like it has been.
It's gonna evolve over
Oh,
the
yeah,
next year
absolutely.
so much that
Yeah.
we'll just have to be strict.
Yeah, no, everything's gonna change and everything's gonna be different from what I'm telling you now to December first.
I'm just wondering if he's gonna, as a listing agent, if he's gonna require me to get a copy of that buyer broker agreement for my compliance. That's really why I was asking.
How about new build agreement when, they said it like 3%, but it closed by end of September, bonus 5,000.
The system, the MLS system will not have a place for compensation bonuses
No, I mean-
of any kind.
Yeah, that's
You can do-
probably.
You can do it in your contract, but not the MLS.
But a
Well,
modification
when
might
it's,
require.
adjustment to the contract, modification, I mean, if the bonus, extra bonus is gonna be paid additional to 3%.
Whatever's in the contract. That's what will happen. I don't, extra bonus, you mean like we.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, for-
Well.
I know.
You take care of it upfront,
But your buyer
You
broker
put in the
agreement
buyer
has
broker
to,
agreement,
has to.
4%.
You can put the
Yes,
percentage.
that's my question.
The problem is they switch on to different places and they don't buy that here, they buy something else, then they're gonna look for that.
Well, it depends on your buyer broker agreement.
Yeah.
So your buyer broker agreement can cover any house they purchase within the next 6 months, or it could purchase this specific house or this specific day, or it could be until I finish this thing. It doesn't matter.
They probably will use the compensation agreement for specific transactions, where the buyer brokerage agreement covers them and the client specifically.
Yeah. Yes, like I said, but the term is absolutely up to you and them. So it can be for this day, it can be for 5 minutes, it can be for 6 months, it can be for 25 years. Up to you.
So the terms of.
We have to date.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, okay.
One day. All right, so there's a question in chat, says, once the deal was closed, will we be able to put any commission paid to a buyer agent in the sales notes? No. Yeah, no. They said no and no. So basically, I'm, again, not looking for it, but, that word, I'm gonna try and make, compensation or commission, the system will basically tell you not to put it in there. We do not currently have a field for commission. We do have a couple of fields for who paid what, and that's acceptable, that's fine. But at the point where you're saying how much, that's a problem. And we can't allow that. Sorry. What else? Anybody else?
Yeah, what are the penalties for not having the buyer rep?
We don't have one yet. I will probably end up having to put one in place, but like I said, the problem right now is that NAR has required that the MLSs are responsible for making sure that you have one. But even in states where it's been a requirement for years, there's no real good way to enforce it, at least not that I found. So if anybody comes up with a great way to do this, absolutely let me know. But what I've seen in other states and other MLSs that do require it, they require it at the time of closing, that it'd be uploaded as part of the information for the closing of the listing itself. But at that point, that's basically an invalid. And so what, right, so what I'm told is that in other states, they're just signing it the day out kind of thing, along with everything else, and they're uploading, and it's even dated that day. But there's nothing that I can do once it's in the system and it's closed at that point, really. So the best I can do is that, we're working with Plex and Showing Time as well, so that if you pull up a listing and you go to send information about a listing to a non-agent, the system will actually pop up a little warning that says, hey, you need a buyer broker, we're going to show a property. But that's about the best I can do. If you got turned in for it, it would basically be, I assume, the same thing we would do for not having a listing agreement, but I would have a penalty in place right now. So, and if anybody finds out about somebody having a penalty, I'd be interested in what it is, but I don't think Principal or CPR have one either, because how are you gonna prove it?
Also an evolution.
Yeah, I mean, it would literally be I need a copy of your buyer broker agreement. Yeah, no problem, I'll get it back to you tomorrow, and then you go get one signed, right? There's literally nothing I can do, or how do I prove that you took people into their, it would have to be such a series of, sequence of events, and it's gonna happen, which I know, why I know we're gonna have to figure out a way to do it. You know, somebody's gonna have to turn you in, they're gonna have to have video footage of you and the buyer, potential buyer coming in, and then they're gonna send me that, and then I'm really like, I have to do something now, you know?
Just turn it over to an HOA.
Oh, yeah, so it is all gonna be complicated as all get out, but for right now, I don't. And like I said, the potential violation fines haven't even made it through the board of directors yet. For us, we're just trying to figure out what we can do and should do. And we're basing that on what other associations are doing. And frankly, ours are a little bit nicer, but we are trying to be serious about it, which is why I'm gonna take the field out for you.
Yeah, because our fines you right away.
Yes.
You can do anything, put any kind of competition in there, they immediately fine you.
Yes.
$500 per time.
Yep. That's what you said, the finance for.
Where?
So we are second violation.
Second violation's $500.
Second violation for us is, so like I said, where we are right now, and again, this has not been approved, so it could change, but the first violation, I'm gonna pull out whatever the problem is. And I'm gonna send it to you with the citation saying, hey, fix this, don't do it again. If you literally copy and paste and put it back, or, you know, modify the listing to put it back, that's gonna be considered a second violation, and I'm gonna fine you $500. And then if you do it a third time, because I'm gonna pull it down again, if you do it a third time, you and your broker are gonna have to come to a panel of the MLS committee, and they can issue whatever they want, fines up to $15,000, MLS suspension termination, or any other services we provide, so could turn the key off, whatever. And there's no requirements on how long that is right now. So. What else?
I hope you guys actually find a penalty for, I know this sounds crazy, but then buyer broker.
Yeah.
To be signed. I hope you guys do find a penalty.
I think.
Because it's gonna be, you're gonna see a lot of people stealing, a lot of agents,
Yeah.
buyers that don't have, that are not willing to sign.
Yeah.
So it's
And like
gonna
I
be
said,
massive.
where we are is, I don't have a way to prove it. I can ask you, and that's the best I can do. But finding it for the thing after the fact is not in the situation I want to be in.
Yeah.
Other associations have done it, where they fine you because they know that you did something wrong. If you fixed it, I don't want to fine you for it. You fixed it at that point.
Yeah.
And like I said, the best I could do would be request that you send it to me. You know,
So
so.
almost in a random sampling, like starting off being very aggressive.
Yeah, but like I said, I don't want to be aggressive. I want to treat you like adults, because I can't treat you like adults anymore, and then we'll make a rule about it when I have to.
There are gonna be so many people, you know, there are gonna be so many people
Well,
trying to
it's
swindle
price
buyers and
better.
people. And everybody just use it, yeah, like literally.
No, and I agree. And like I said, where we are, at least from my point of view, is our rules are tailored to support those agents that don't know what's going on, have no idea, and haven't been told. And so that's why our first one isn't one. But then, once I've told you, and I'm literally pulling it down for you, once that was really the biggest thing, because that is a departure from the way we've always done it. Right now, for any other rule that you violate, I'm gonna send you a notice. I'm gonna ask you to fix it. You don't fix it, I'm gonna send you another notice, and then eventually I'm gonna fine you for it. But at no point have we ever, as staff, removed something for you. That's where we're differentiating on this one. So where, like I said, other associations are literally pulling the entire listing. I only pull them out.
Do you guys get in trouble?
Yes.
Is there stuff in your MLS
Yes.
that we've done?
$10 million. Yes.
You, sir, are going to be a very busy man for big pain.
Yes. Not enough, but we are absolutely, you're absolutely right. There are thousands of agents and thousands of listings, and I have a team of basically 4. And we are gonna do our best and lean as hard as I can into automation, so that's why we're going with compliance module. But even the monitoring that we agreed to do for, you know, terms like percentage or percent and that kind of thing, that can only be for a temporary amount of time. Like, I can't do that forever. Now, if they decide to make a percentage or the word percentage against the rules, I can work with that, but at least while we're in this, the weird times, I'm gonna do my best, but if you see something, say something.
I don't really know if it's a question to answer, but it's a question I have. So let's just say you have your agreement signed and then you're gonna go show somebody 5 houses and then one of those houses, you call the agent before, because you should know before, they're paying, I don't know, they're only gonna pay
3%.
1% or something. So
Sure.
you're telling that buyer, just so you know, if we go to this house, you're gonna owe me 2%, and they decide, they don't wanna do that.
Okay.
So they go and call the selling agent and say, all right, I'm done with you, I'm gonna go buy this house. Then what can you do about that? Nothing?
If you have a buyer broker agreement, you already have a contract with them.
But you didn't show them that day. I mean, like,
Well, and that's all about how you guys word your buyer broker agreement. So the buyer broker agreement is designed, and I've been preaching this as an ethics instructor for years. The buyer broker agreement protects you. It's the only thing that you have that makes the code of ethics apply as a buyer's agent. But if you have a buyer broker agreement, whatever your buyer broker agreement says, that's a contract. If you've said it for 6 months, you don't have to let them out. You can, but you don't have to. At which point I owe you the other 2% kind of thing. But I think being open with them is basically the way that you need to go. I mean, when you sign a buyer broker agreement, having the conversation about, here's my rate, here's what I'm going to be compensated. That's where you tell them why you're worth it. And then you really shouldn't have to explain to them, that again, because at the point where somebody's offering 1%, you get to be able to say, hey, I know my rate says 3, but this one's gonna pay 1%. You don't have to pay 2.
You can still try to negotiate that with the other agent, say like, hey, I got an offer for you,
Right.
let's negotiate.
Let's-
I mean, you're
let's-
paying 1%, but
But you've got to involve the buyer and the seller in that.
And also too, don't forget the protection periods in there. So the protection periods, we had a girl that wanted to see one house from the listing agent, right? So she said, I'll do it for just today.
Yeah.
She said, should I put the protection period for 0 days? I said, well, that's cool, but what if you showed her the house, then tomorrow she finds another agent, writes an offer? I said, so put it for 90 days on said property, yeah. So I had her put the protection period for 90 days. So if she wanted to write an offer, then she wouldn't be able to write an offer and close on the house for 90 days or 6 months. So that protection period's a way to cover them from seeing said property and then writing an offer the next day with another agent.
And that's specific to you as a brokerage. Like I said, brokerages are all gonna be different, and other agents, you can't assume they're gonna operate the same way as you guys. You have, great people you're working with you to make sure that you are in compliance. And bringing me in to make sure that we try and keep you in compliance is the absolute best thing that you can do. There's smaller brokerages that may not have even heard of this yet.
I have a broker calling me, asking me what to do. She's a broker.
Yeah, I had somebody call me the other day, wanted to know what was going on, and I was like, do you have one of these? Okay, so that's a great question. The answer is yes and no. So the question was, does this apply to commercial? The settlement itself only actually applies to residential. However, we and most MLSs that I'm aware of are pulling compensation information from all listings, because while the settlement was very narrow in scope, that just means there's a target on the back for everything else. So we are going to pull commercial compensation down. We have never had a property management compensation, so there's no change on that.
so we don't have to have a buyer's broker agreement with commercial buyers.
That right now. Right. Let me say right. But yes, before after August 17th, before you do it, I would check with Florida Legal and see if there's someplace to check in with them, but I will absolutely try to publish as much as we can about that. But yes, commercial and property management are a different animal than residential, and the settlement applies to it.
What's a personal projection? Will we have many listings with 0 buyer agent position?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, in the same way that you have, limited service listings now with flat rate fees, right? Some brokerage is gonna decide that the way that they're gonna make their money is by offering this 0% and saying that it's a great deal. But you're still gonna be compensated by the buyer broker agreement, so at that point, it won't really matter. But yeah, I absolutely think you're gonna see some of that some places. I don't know what it's gonna look like, and it's gonna be the wild, wild west until it settles down, but yeah, I absolutely think something's gonna
gonna take a year for everything to.
Yeah, almost certainly, probably a couple of years, because like I said, where we are right now is I've already got people asking me, but yeah, but what if I wanted to, you know? Well, and I'm like, look, we both know you're looking for a loophole that I can't give you. So yeah, somebody is going to try the loophole that they think that they found without consulting me, and they're gonna get into trouble for it. And then they're gonna be mad. And then they're gonna report everybody else that they think is doing it, whether they're doing it or not. Because that's the way citations work, if you guys didn't know. And then, yeah, and then they're gonna try and then they're gonna be real hurt about that. And then they're gonna decide that the only way that their businesses can survive is either A, to work on the dark side, or B, find another loophole. Because that happens too. But yeah, like I said, our rules, are intentionally broad in scope, so that our committee can help us to narrow them down, and you will see changes in our rules from now probably until January 1st. I hope to have it nailed down better than that, but yeah, it's the best I can do, because I just cannot envision what they're gonna do, but I can't fail to plan.
One more question. On social media, like many agents right now and brokerage post like funny TikTok video that the only change we have, we will switch from the word commission to concession, and that's it. And we can place it on MLS concession, is that? So is it like TikTok or use the tips?
So it's like every time you see a photo with a clock in it, it's gonna set 3 o'clock and we'll know it's 3% kind of thing. I think that you're gonna have to call that brokerage to find out anyway. And at the point where they tell you, they're basically gonna get into trouble because somebody's gonna tell on them. Because somebody's not gonna wanna pay the $10 million fine, right? And so, yes, I think that they will, I hope that it's not the word concession, because concession means something and it's beneficial right now, right? But let's say they use the word duck, right? So every time you see the word duck in a listing, you're gonna know that that brokerage is paying commission. At the point where I find out that duck is the bad word, I'm gonna make the word duck impossible to use in the system. And then they're gonna have to find a new word, right? And we're gonna play whack-a-mole like that for months until they figure out this is not a viable way of doing business. Chris isn't gonna allow it. What are we gonna do? Well, we could just do it the right way. But yes, I absolutely think that they're gonna come up with something. But like I said, yes, don't use that. But I absolutely think, that they will. I hope that they choose not to use words like concession that do have a valid meaning and purpose, right now. But yes, I think that will happen, unfortunately. Yes, sir.
I'm going to answer the question, I will.
So, have you got a word?
No, so if you have a buyer broker agreement, you have 30%. But on the house that your buyer wants to buy is 2.5% of what they're gonna get you. And you go back, and you don't really wanna charge your buyer that 0.5%. Can you go back and modify your agreement?
Absolutely. So the listing for the buyer broker agreement is designed, like I said, very carefully worded to say that you're not gonna make more than this. So it's where they're offering 4 and your buyer broker agreement says 3, that we have to figure out and make this work differently, right? But if they're offering, 2.5 and your buyer broker says 3 and you don't want to mess up the deal, yeah, if you don't want to, clear the deal as a result, you can absolutely modify that down.
Okay.
Yeah, but again, you need a modification for it. There should be a form. It should be really easy to do. But yeah.
Good, thank you.
Yeah.
So there's no way of saying, okay, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, when we took this down, I need to get paid one way or another. I'm willing to take, up to 2.5% minimum. But if they offer, you can't put that up there up to, some kind of verbiage, if the seller.
That's on y'all and the way it's written, but like I said, the spirit of the rule, at least the way that I can see it.
Put it higher and then modify it to lower. Cause if you put it low and it pays more, you will only get paid on the low.
Yeah. So that, and that's where we are, but you have to justify that buyer broker agreement up front. And then, yeah, reducing is easy, going higher, he's probably right. Yeah, and yes, he's right, you can't open-end it, but somebody's gonna try. I absolutely know that somebody's gonna try it, and it's gonna be a problem for them.
So, yeah, going along that line, so say you got 3% in a new build, it says gives you an extra 1%. Can you put at the bottom that you can accept, that the buyer says that you can accept that extra 1%?
If they're offering more than what your buyer broker agreement says,
Yes.
that's where you guys need to talk.
It's all part of the buyer broker agreement, because it's like, it's still within there.
You'll need to talk to your lawyer about it. Like I said, that's not a me issue, that's a contract issue, and you're gonna wanna make sure that you've got the most up-to-date form you possibly can get. And I can tell you where to go to get it, but only today. Tomorrow, new form change. Right? Tomorrow, new forms, right? But.
So
Yeah.
if you do put 3% in there, 4%, whatever you decide to charge,
Your buyer broker agreement.
yes.
Okay.
Can you have a separate agreement with your, buyer to know that they're not gonna have to be responsible for that extra if they're not compensated?
Like a pre-in-place modification down?
Just so they know that they're not gonna have to be responsible for all of that if you're willing to take.
Well, you can't say that.
You can use one.
Yeah, yeah, you can't,
Just show them more.
Yeah.
The modification, I haven't.
yeah, like I said, the down is relatively easy, at least to my understanding, but again, I don't do the contracts, and I don't care what the contracts say. You will, as long as you have the form, that's it. I'm just gonna send it to my lawyer, and they're gonna tell me it's the form.
I just don't want, I guess, short change.
No, I get it. Like I said, unfortunately, that's into the contract law and what you guys have set up specifically for your brokerage or, what you want to use from Florida.
I think I have put that modification to the exclusive buyer brokerage agreement in command. So there's a place already for it.
In the list, the buyer.
Yeah, and
Okay.
fire option.
Now, is there a way that you can stay after Chris is done and we can go over a few of those?
Yeah.
That's right. What else? Yeah, you're good. Anything else?
That was very helpful.
Fantastic. Yeah, like I said.
What can we do to help you?
If you see something squirrely, let us know about it. I mean, it's the same thing it's always been, which is, we're a self-policing agency for the most part. If you see something that's problematic, let us know. I mean, worst case, I'm gonna pull it down and I'm gonna talk to them about it, right? Well, I say that, worst case, they've done it before and they know they shouldn't do it, and then they're gonna get fined for it, but yeah, we're a self-policing association. I rely on you guys to tell me when things like this go sideways. And if you find out that they're using the word duck or whatever to tell people that they've got a commission, let me know and we'll take care of it. But like I said, yeah, the worst case scenario would be that these lawyers that are part of the settlement, that's not NAR, are looking at MLSs and looking for somebody to hit. And we are, the biggest qualification that you can be is a mega board. And it's 5,000 or more agents. We are considered a mega board. And we haven't been a mega board for very long. And so it's one of those situations where if I was gonna hit somebody, I wouldn't hit Miami with 90,000 agents and, 4 teams of lawyers. I'd hit the guy that just got to be a mega board, who doesn't know, may not have the resources to cover the kind of thing where I was gonna sell it. So, yeah, everybody's running scared, and Pensacola and CPAR have created this knee-jerk response where they're gonna pull the listing itself and make you fix it. But I don't think that that's beneficial to you or to the agent or to your seller. Yeah, and so we're trying in a softer way, but if that doesn't work, I'll have to do what they're doing. So, all right. Well, Thank you guys for having me out. Were there any other questions online on the form or anything? Fantastic.